welcome to Clean Coder YouTube channel. If you are new to this channel, I'll highly recommend you to subscribe to my channel as I make content related to software engineering, system design, and data structures and algorithms. So today we are going to study object-oriented programming principles in Java. So I am very sure if you have given coding interviews, interviewers tend to ask some of the oops concepts in coding interviews, like what is encapsulation, or like what is abstraction, or like what is the difference between encapsulation or abstraction, and like what is like polymorphism, various types of polymorphism. So I am very sure that you must have seen these sorts of questions. So if you want to understand each of the object-oriented principle in depth, I highly recommend you to watch this tutorial till the very end. So in this tutorial, we'll be directly going over to the free code camp article. Like, this is a really well written article, and I think this is authored by Thanoshan MV. So all the credits goes to the author, and I'll just be going through this article quickly. So let's get started. Okay, so this is the article. Let's scroll down a bit, and now let's understand what is fundamentals of object-oriented programming. Okay, so what are fundamentals of object-oriented programming? So object-oriented programming is a programming paradigm where everything is represented as an object. Okay, here everything is an object, and objects pass messages to each other. Each object decides what to do with a received message. So object-oriented programming focuses on each object's states and its behaviors. Okay, so this is some of the theory regarding object-oriented programming itself. So like, what are objects in object-oriented programming? So let's try to understand that as well. So an object is an entity that has state and behavior. Okay, so like some of the examples of entities are like dog, cat, vehicle, and the author says to illustrate, a dog has state like age, right, color, name, behavior like eating, sleeping, and running. So these are the states a dog class might have. So state tells us how the object looks or what properties it has. Cool. So behavior tells us what the object does. Okay, we can actually represent a real world dog in a program as a software object by defining its states and behaviors. Okay, so this is a bit of theory about like what are objects. So let me scroll down a bit. Okay, so we can actually represent real world dog in a program as a software object, defining its states and behaviors. Fine. And then software objects are actual representation of real world objects. Memory is allocated in RAM whenever creating a logical object. Cool. So an object is also referred to as an instance of a class, right? So whenever you do something like class name, then this is object name is equals to new, then you use some sort of constructor to initialize this object, right? So this is nothing but the instance of the class, right? This is object, right? So objects are nothing but instance of class. So instantiating a class means the same thing as creating an object, right? The important thing to remember when creating an object is the reference type should be same or a super type of the object type. Okay, what does he means by this line? He meant to say that here you can use any class which is either the parent or like one coming from the parent hierarchy. So you can replace it with any class which is parent class to this class. Okay, this is what he wants to say. We'll see reference type in article later. Cool. So after studying classes, an obvious thing we need to know about is what are classes. Objects we have studied in depth. Now it's time to understand what are classes. Okay, so what are classes? So classes is a template or blueprint from which objects are created. Okay, so it's kind of this what we call it frame from which you can create actual object, right? This is a kind of actual object, and this is a kind of frame which you can use to create the actual object. So a class is a template or blueprint from which objects are created. So here he wants to say us that imagine a class as a cookie cutter, okay, and objects as cookies. So yeah, these are the meaning of classes. So let's scroll down a bit now. What does he says here? Classes define states as instance variable and behavior as instance methods. Okay, instance variables are also known as member variables. Cool. Classes don't consume any space. Okay, and to give you an idea about classes and objects, let's create a cat class that represents state and behavior of a real world cat. So cat is a class here and various kinds of behaviors are represented here, like name, age, color, breed, and various behaviors of cat are like cat sleeps, cat plays, right? So those are captured here. So these are the behaviors which a classes can have, which a cat can have. Let's scroll down a bit. Yeah, now we have successfully defined a template for cat. Let's say we have two cats named Thor and Rambo. Yeah, you can represent these via two objects, right? So the name of the first object is Thor and the second one is Rambo. You can use the constructor, the default one or the implicit constructor, to instantiate the classes. Okay, so now we'll define the states and behaviors. Okay, so state means assigning value to the instance variable or like the parameters of the object. So here he is assigning the values to parameters like name, age, breed, color. Okay, and then he's calling the behavior sleep. Okay, again he is assigning the values to the parameters name, age, breed, color, then he is calling the behavior and play. Okay, this is what he means by these examples. Okay, so let's scroll down more now. Like the above code examples, we can define our class, instantiate it, and specify the states and behaviors for those objects. Now we have covered the basics of object-oriented programming. Let's move on to the principles of object-oriented programming. So the actual topic of this video starts from here, which are principles of object-oriented programming. Hey guys, do check out this Instagram channel, the Encoder Community, for all the jokes and memes related to software engineering. Thanks a lot.